When I hear the name Danielle Lawrie, I think of everything that the Husky softball program is about, and that is confidence through preparation. It's mental toughness. It's being a champion.
Danielle Lawrie trying to close the door.
$5,800 fans in attendance, starting to get on their feet. The pitch on the way, swung out and missed. The Washington Huskies have won the national title in 2009.
We won the national championship that year, but we would not have been able to do it without Danielle.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Matt Lisle, and today is Tuesday, February 16th, and we are live, and this is the Ask Coach Lisle show, where I try to help parents, coaches, and athletes around the world tackle the challenges of life and athletics. So if you're just tuning in, let me know that you're here, and let me know where you're tuning in from around the world. And make sure you hit that like button. If you're following on Twitter, hit that retweet button again, and let us know where you're tuning in from. One of my favorite parts about this show is every week seeing where everyone is tuning in from. Last week we had people from New Zealand, Canada, Costa Rica, Australia, even Serbia. We had people from all over the country. So if you're just tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from. And I really enjoy seeing where everybody's tuning in from. So hit that like button, hit that share button. And if you just tuned in, you missed the intro. But if you were here, you know, and you may have already guessed from the intro video who my special guest is today. It's none other than Olympian, All-American, national champion, and one of the greatest of all time, Danielle Lawrie. Danielle, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. This is great.
And I'm really excited to have Danielle on here. Her and I've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last couple of years and having some good parent, athlete, coach talks. But Danielle and I will be answering all of your questions live for about the next 30 minutes in regards to anything you can think of. And so get your questions in the comment section. I already see a ton of people tuning in. Martin's in Prague. Alexis in Monterey Bay. Keith is in Georgia. Randy is in Nova Scotia, Canada. Chris is in Temecula. Beverly in Canada. Toronto. So we got the Canadians are coming out in full force. Kayla's in BC. So it's good to see that. And I know a lot of you already know Danielle, but Danielle's bio was kind of one of a kind. So I just want to kind of touch on a few highlights. Okay. So currently she is a pitcher on the Canadian national team heading to the Olympics, hopefully this summer, as long as everything keeps going right. She played for several years professionally and started at the University of Washington, where she won a national championship, was named the National Player of the Year twice, and ranks 4th all-time on the NCAA strikeouts list. Pretty much holds every record, pitching record at Washington. I don't know if any of those are going down anytime soon. And her accomplishments alone could take up this entire show. But one of my favorite, which many of you may not know, is that she ranks 10th all-time on the University of Washington's home run list. So that's a pretty cool fun fact for me, at least. I like that one. So as your questions start pouring in, get your questions in for Danielle. I have a couple of questions for of myself for you. So as we get going here this afternoon, my first question is for you is like, hey, you kind of came out of retirement to make this Olympic comeback. So my question for you is, was that easy? Was it like, yeah, no problem, jump back in? What was the process of that? And then kind of the follow-up question to that is, throughout this journey where you said, you know what, I'm making the comeback, is it easier? Is it easier than you expected? Is it tougher than you expected? What do you think?
Well, it was an easy decision for me to choose to come back. It was harder to convince my husband that this was the right thing, because we were in the thick of a 9-month-old baby and a 3.5-year-old. So that is definitely weighed more on him when I'm gone. And I think if I've learned anything over the course of the last 3.5 years, it has been that mamas don't get breaks. My teammates get to do the grind of the weights and practice, and they get to go home and recover. And as you know, as a father, it's challenging when you have little kids to balance all of that. But I also think that has made me even tougher and even stronger, being able to do that. And answering your question as far as what I thought this journey would be, I never in my life imagined it to be as challenging as it has been. Obviously the mom piece, the marriage piece, and then on top of that, trying to train to be one of the best in the world. And I also know I'm not the best pitcher in the world. So that takes another level of work ethic. So when you get to that moment, when everything's supposed to just happen, you have to rely on the preparation piece. And that's why I try to prepare more than most to be able to go to battle and see where we're at.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got to imagine it just probably feels different at 32, 33 than it does at 22, 23. And just the whole life is just different. Like you said, family, it's just an entirely different thing as the older we get, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, all of the things. So if you are just tuning in, you are tuning in to the Ask Coach Lisle show. I am live with Olympian and Hall of Famer Danielle Lawrie right now, and we are answering your questions live. So get your questions into the question comment section right there. We've got a lot of people tuning in. Carrie's in St. Catharines, Ontario. We've got Eric in Wisconsin, Mark's in Charleston, South Carolina, Willie's in Laredo, Texas, Tara's in Virginia, and I said a lot of Canadians that tuning in today. So thank you, everybody, tuning in today and from there. The next question for you, and this is one I've been asking every guest, and some of them have had the same answers, but I want to ask you because your career has spanned a couple different time periods. Throughout your career as a pitcher, who are the one or two toughest outs you've ever had in the circle, in your opinion?
So it's funny. I watched the Natasha Watley one yesterday that you did, and then Rafter and I were just chatting. She's like, "Well, who are the two toughest hitters that you've ever had to face?" And I was like, Caitlin Cochran from Arizona State was by far one of the toughest hitters. Power lefty, didn't fear me at all. And so for me, I could throw a ball at her and she would swing, which she's taken me deep lots, but I've also struck her out lots. So that was always a battle. And then I have to go to the professional ranks. I got to give credit to Megan Wiggins. Her and I have had our battles against each other. We have hated each other. And I think we have that mutual respect of just both embracing the grind and being great at our crafts. And she is definitely someone that at the University of Georgia was great. And then in the professional ranks as well, it's like I couldn't get away from her. I literally couldn't get away from her.
Those are two really good ones. That's for sure. And sometimes it's just those hitters that foul off 15 pitches that just I cannot figure a way to get this hitter out. And so
yes,
that's awesome. Hey, the first question coming in, I think it's a really interesting one. The question is, if there was one pitching rule you would change, what would it be?
That you can slide your front foot forward. I try to not do that, but I will put my foot as back on the front of the rubber as I can to create that momentum. I am so stoked that they changed the rule where you can take off your back foot. I think it's a crime to tell a pitcher that she has to be athletic and have her feet literally both touching the rubber. But I wish we could create a little bit more momentum with that front step. I think that does add a little bit of velo, but that would definitely be what I would like to change.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if you are just tuning in, I love to hear where you guys are tuning in from. Steve's in Oxford, Mississippi. So if you are just tuning in right now, do me a favor, hit the like button if you're on Facebook, hit the share button, hit the retweet button. One of the things that I know Danielle is big on and I have been big on and all the guests that have been on is we are advocates and lovers of the game of softball and wanting to get the word out more and more about this great sport. So when you hit the like button and when you hit the share button and the retweet button, you're not just helping the likes and numbers, you're helping the algorithms in the sense of getting the word out. I had Samantha Shao on yesterday. We talked about Athletes Unlimited in the pro game and trying to help get the word out. So when you hit the like button and when you hit the share buttons and these things, it helps shine more lights on the spotlight. So and here's the next question for you, Danielle. This is a good one that I'm very curious about myself. What is the one thing you want your daughters to learn/remember about your experience now that they're getting to see you play and compete this time around?
Wow. I answered this question doing a video that Stephanie Best had set up. It's kind of called The Last Run, where it's documenting me, Jen, and Rafter. And she made me kind of do Dear, Maddie and Audrey about just this last 3.5 years in the game. And I think if they've seen anything, it has been that their mom has set a goal and she has shed many tears throughout and has questioned my reason and my why a lot of times. But at the end of the day, the love and respect that I have for this game is there. So to me, that means it's just a relentless, ruthless work ethic for the end goal, right? We're not guaranteed to win an Olympic medal. We're not guaranteed to even go at this point. But what I've always learned is embracing the grind is the best thing that you can do. It was taught from my parents, and I love them dearly for allowing me to understand that piece to the puzzle, because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to get greatness out of yourself. So, I mean, Maddie has been on runs with me where she is crying within the first 50 meters of, an 800-meter lap on the track. And I have to look at her and be like, honey, we're not stopping. I know this sucks, but these are the types of life lessons. Like, you do this and you mentally feel better after, and you feel tougher. So it's been cool getting to see her love of the sport grow purely because I'm back in it. It has been so special.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely gotten to see some of her reactions and stuff on Instagram, and that's been kind of fun to see. It makes me feel a little bit better about pushing my own kids a little bit here and there. So again, if you're just tuning in, make sure you get your questions in. We're live right now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, and I'm with my special guest, Danielle Lawrie. So thank you for doing that. Our next question of the day, this is a good one, comes from Mike. He says, Danielle, have you always been a self-motivator, as I see on your Instagram posts? Or does she draw motivation from Rafter, Jen Salling to stay in shape, condition? So yeah, talks a little bit about your motivation, and and I know we know Jen and Rafter, like, they get after it pretty hard too. Do they help you in kind of getting motivated to get after it right now?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, I learned the self-motivation piece from my mom and dad. My dad was someone that was like, if you're going to do something, you do not half-ass it. You go with everything that you have, because we're not mediocre. We try to be great and excel. But what I can honestly say is this last probably 11 months, I have pulled so much from Jen and Raf, because I've been on the ledge multiple times questioning why I'm doing it. And what I've had to learn is, like, the vulnerability piece is so important. So to be able to utilize your teammates who are going through the exact same things, the importance for me to be able to shed a tear to Rafter and tell her, like, where my head's at and why I'm feeling that way. But she can also validate that it's okay. And she's felt that, and she's going through it. And I think at the end of the day, being able to hopefully get to do this Olympic run with them 13 years in the middle of our last Olympics in 2008 is so special. And they have always been that soundboard for me. I can talk crap to them. I can do anything I want, and they're there to support me. And they've been a huge help. I'm not sure I'm in the position I'm in right now without Jen and Raf.
Yeah, people always say, we talk about being self-made, but there really is nobody who's self-made. It's really about the people around you and who help you kind of get there, get to the finish line, and help you with that. So it's awesome to see everybody tuning in here from all over the world. Jason's in Colorado Springs. Michael says he's in Frozen, Ohio. Ashley's in frigid Newman Grove, Nebraska. Martina's in Austria. That's pretty cool. Madison, Wisconsin. The next question for you, this is an interesting one. What is the biggest thing you look for in a catcher?
Man, if I could bottle up Rafter and just give her to everyone, I would. I think honestly, like, she has been someone that we have so much history with together. So the mutual respect is there to hold each other to the higher standard. And that is something that I've struggled with a little bit. Like, if a catcher's coming in hot at you, like, you're not hitting your spots, you're not doing this, you can get on your toes a little bit. But Rafter has been so good about being able to kind of execute a game plan. She loves watching film. I'll watch a little bit of film, but I think for me, like, knowing that she's done her homework, the trust is there. If something's off, she's the first one to come and have that conversation with me. And if you rewind back to my UW days and Alicia Blake behind the dish, the lefty, I mean, she was the calm to my storm. I go out there and I'm hot, I'm crazy. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and that's always how I've been. So I kind of utilize someone that can bring me back, and someone that can kind of bring that calm, or come out and crack a joke or cuss in my ear and make me laugh when I need just that little calm and balance. But communication above all, right? When you have a pitcher catcher, it has to be 2 against 1, have to be able to put in that homework together to feel like you're not alone. The most loneliest position at times can be a pitcher. And if you know that your catcher doesn't have your back, you're in trouble.
Yeah, so if you were a catcher tuning in and listening, the things you should have been hearing is, like, skill is important. You got to be a good receiver, and you got to take care of the ball. But like it's about relationship and trust. That's a huge part of it. And there's a little piece of like therapist, psychologist in there that you've got to be able to calm that person down. You've got to be able to know how to do that and what that looks like for them and what motivates them. Sometimes, like you said, like sometimes you need to light a fire under your butt. Sometimes you got to calm them down. And as catchers, you've got to know what your pitcher needs in those things. And when you can do that, that really, really can help pitchers out a lot. So, now I'm going to get to the question of the day for all the fans that are listening. This is questions for you guys. I know there's a lot of Canadians out there today and a lot of Danielle Lawrie fans. So my question of the day for everybody listening is, what is your favorite Danielle Lawrie moment? Did you actually get to see her live? Tell us about your favorite moment ever as a fan of Danielle Lawrie. If you got to see her play in the World Series or professionally, Pan Am Games, World Championships, Olympics. If you got to see that, I want to hear about what is your favorite memory, Danielle Lawrie memory. All right, the next question comes from Drew Locke. Drew says, did you drop bombs like Maddie does when you were 7?
Not even close. I have to give all the props to my husband with the hitting piece. I will help Maddie and take credit for pitching all day, but my husband killed it. And, you know, he played minor league baseball and was a stud and an amazing hitter. And I just told him once Maddie started to get interested and she wanted to go to the cages, I was like, dude, this is you. And then I tried to give hitting tips one time and it was wrong. He's like, you cannot do that again. So credit goes to Drew Locke.
Nice. It's good that you guys can trade off the pitching and the hitting a little bit. I'm guessing I would love to know Drew's knowledge on pitching because I've been in the game for about 9 years and I don't know anything about pitching. So I would be curious. And that kind of leads me a follow-up question for me. For you personally, when you were playing, when did the light come on? Like, you know what, I might be pretty good at this sport, and you started realizing that there might be a future for you at a high level.
Yeah, so I started out playing baseball and had got cut at 11 years old from the Little League All-Star team, the guys team, and I was, devastated. And my dad had to pull me aside and just kind of explain the hard stuff at a young age, in the sense where it's like playing a guy's sport isn't something that's going to allow long-term success for you. So I was able to go and start trying softball, and I was terrible at it. The coach, I still remember, her name was Deb, and she loved her daughter, and her daughter was the pitcher. And I remember starting the slingshot and being horrible at it. But somebody telling me that I couldn't do something was exactly what I needed in order to be great. Obviously, a lot of people in my corner, my pitching coach, Rick Sullivan, would work with me relentlessly and saw something in me, but my mom and dad did at first. And I have to say this, but it's like the importance of playing multiple sports is what allowed for my love of the game of softball to grow. I think if I was just all about softball at 9, 10, 11 years old, I'm not sure that I would still be playing it at 33. So I think the importance of letting kids be kids is such a cool thing, because they have to have fun. If you don't have fun in this game, you do not embrace the grind and you don't want to do it. So multiple sports definitely sculpted me into being who I am and why I'm still competing.
That's awesome. The next question for you, I think this is a good one too. When describing the international or college game back in 2008, 2009 versus the game in 2021, what has changed or improved and what is the same? What have you noticed about just the game in general since your college days till now?
Yeah, well, the umpires are the same. You never know what you're going to get with those. But I just believe that the talent has gotten so much better on both ends, but most importantly, hitting, right? Like you have so many different opportunities to watch video from every single different angle. And these hitters, I mean, after playing professionally over in Japan for a couple of years, I know why they won the gold medal in 2008. They practice more than any other players in the world. So what I've just had to learn is that, yes, hitting has gotten better and has evolved, but pitching, at the end of the day, if you throw heat and you hit a location and you have a good changeup and you can own a location, that will ultimately beat a great hitter. But what you have to know is you have to be able to tip your cap sometimes when the great ones hit a good spot. That's just part of the game. But the biggest thing is like finding a way from one pitch to the next to make adjustments. And when you do get hit, clean slate, man, flush it. Like there's nothing I can do about what just happened. But it has been really cool being back in the game and just seeing how different it really is from a lot of these new players, but you still have a lot of old school players playing too. So it's pretty awesome.
That is really cool. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to see. That's for me, being in softball, having a baseball background and just hasn't been in softball that long. The one thing that I root for the pro league and pro softball so much because I see that the best softball players, like they're becoming better and better, 28, 29, 30 years old. I mean, you got Kelly,
Yes.
Monica, and it's like, if we don't have that pro league, we don't get to see these great, incredible college softball players move on to there. And so for me, I've been a big holding on to hope that the pro league stuff keeps getting better, because for me as a coach and watching these players, I'm seeing development happen 24, 27, 28 years old. And a lot of these players that are become the best in the world, they stop playing at 21 because of the opportunity. So hopefully that changes over the years and keeps getting better. But yeah, it's fun to get to see some of the players that are still playing and still getting better at older ages. Frederick says his best memory of you was versus UMass Amherst, 15 innings. He says he thinks there was 36 combined strikeouts between the pitchers. Do you remember
You couldn't pay me to go back to that. You couldn't pay me.
I mean,
that was a defining moment for me. That my whole entire career, that game.
How many pitches do you think you had to have thrown in that game? 200, 250? I mean.
Yeah, and the hard part was that we played 7 innings 30 minutes before that other game. So we lost to UMass in the morning, and then through that 90-minute, game, and then had to turn it around 30 minutes and go back to that 15-inning game. I couldn't move my arm for about 4 days. But the mental part of it was by far the hardest. Like, Ken Revisit always taught me like one pitch at a time. There was one pitch that I didn't focus on and it got robbed over the fence. My teammate Amanda Fleischman robbed a homer. And if she wouldn't have been in that inning in that time, we wouldn't have won a national championship. And this whole thing, we might not even be sitting here. So, there's so many different parts about the game, but that was by far the most mentally challenging. I remember calling my dad after, just bawling my eyes out, because to me, it was like all the hard stuff from the 2008 Olympics and that grind was all for something bigger. And it was that moment in time. So just got to respect the game and the karma piece and keep working hard.
Yeah, it's funny. Probably one of my favorite games I've ever watched in softball was a couple years ago. Caitlin Lee with Ole Miss and Rachel Garcia. I think she was a freshman at UCLA. I think they went 13, 14 innings against each other in an incredible battle. You kind of didn't want it to end. You were like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to last? How long can these pitchers last? It's fun to see just the mental battle that goes on, not just the physical battle, but the mental battle of continuing to go out there 13th, 14th, 15th inning. It's incredible. That's really cool. So next question comes from Ayana Lopez. She asks, after a bad game, how do you bounce back? So for you, when you have a bad game, I know you haven't had a ton of them, but when you do, what is it like for you to kind of reset and flush? I know you mentioned Ken Revisa. For you, what is the flush mechanism, or what does it look like for you to bounce back?
I remember one game in particular from my senior year when we played OU in the Super Regionals, and Kaylani Ricketts was a freshman. They came to us. And that was actually, it's kind of embarrassing, but that was the game that Amber Flores had 3 home runs against me. And the first time in my whole entire career at Washington where you could tell I wanted out. And the game was done. I remember going in the locker room and bawling like a baby. And but in that moment in time, what I needed was to truly sit and watch the game. I had to mute it because I didn't want to hear what anyone had to say. But watching yourself in your most uncomfortable situations is what honestly kind of helped me realize, like, wow, that is not me. Like, it's not my demeanor. That's not how, I get the ball back after Flores hit her first home run. What did I look like? So that's definitely something that I would recommend. But I also think being humbled in this game is the best piece of pie that you can have. It makes you realize you haven't made it and you got to put hay in the barn. So for me, having a bad game with Team Canada, the next day I love putting on my headphones and getting a hard workout in, a hard run on the warning track, and saying positive things to myself. And I'm such an advocate for that. Like, if you speak horrible to yourself, you're going to believe it. Yes, it sucks. Get it out. I'm terrible. This was a bad game. But dude, you got to close that chapter. You cannot make what just happened in the past change tomorrow, right? Like, I can't make that outcome any different, but I can speak kindly to myself and tell myself to get to work. And it's just a humbling part of the game.
Next question comes from David. He says, we are just starting a 10U team with mostly 8 and 9-year-olds. How do we get girls interested and excited about pitching? That's a good question, because I'll tell you, my daughter, she's going to turn 8 here soon, and she's starting to play softball. She's kind of liking it, but the pitching thing and being alone in the circle, she's pretty introverted and shy. How do you get girls interested and excited about pitching when they're first getting into the game?
There's nothing better than striking people out, man. That is what had me drawn to this position, ultimately the one that was in control of the moment. And I think being able to tell these young ladies, you have the opportunity to have the ball in your hand every single pitch. And that's a cool thing, to be able to control that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you just want to be focused on what you're trying to do. But being able to strike someone out, and the goosebumps you get and the fun butterflies you have in those moments are what you get to continue to feel as you get older and you get more competitive. You still want to make it fun, but I think even 8 and 9-year-olds need to be told that if you want to be great, you got to put in that work. So it even starts with my 7-year-old daughter. We don't just do things to do it. We do it with intention, to work on it, to get better. And we embrace the fun and the good and the bad of it. But striking people out and being the one in that moment is ultimately why I'm still doing it.
That's why I enjoyed pitching. There's nothing better, maybe other than a home run, but striking people out is definitely gives you a good feeling. Let's see here. The next question I've got for you, and I'll tell you what, we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you're just tuning in, I am live right now doing Q&A with Danielle Lawrie. So get your questions in. We're going to get a couple more here before we end our afternoon. And so make sure you get them in. The next question, this is an interesting one. Mike asks, is there a hitter she did not get to throw against that she wishes she could have challenged? And similar, is there a pitcher she never got a chance to? So as a hitter and a pitcher, is anybody that you're like, man, I wanted to face her in a championship game, or, is there anyone you thought about?
That's a good question. See, I think of certain hitters and I'm like, Amia Davidson with Mississippi State, but I got to play against her. Those are the types of hitters that you want to be able to play against all the time. Those home run leaders. I would have loved to step in the box against Rachel Garcia. She's one of the best in the game. She throws hard. She throws consistently 70 up in the zone. So I think that would have been a cool thing. But when I look back, I feel so fortunate that I got to play against hitters like Mendoza. I got to throw against Mendoza and Caitlin Lowe and Crystal Bustos, and there's not a lot of other great hitters that you're getting to face one after the other. So that prepares you. And that was the dream team. That 2004 was the dream team. And I got to play them in 2005. And it was a pretty special moment for me.
So you mentioned Rachel Garcia and Mia Davidson. Is there anyone else right now that you're watching the game in college softball that you get excited to watch as a pitcher or a hitter that you're like, ooh, I enjoy watching them play?
Anyone from OU right now. I mean, looking at the amount of home runs they had weekend one, I would love to pitch against that. To say that there's, one player in particular, there's not. I would need to do my homework on looking at a couple things, but I look at the team piece. I would love to take on OU at a World Series all day, power swingers, Arizona, all those hot hitting teams I love as a pitcher because they're trying to go yard off of you. So how am I going to try to keep them off balance and me versus you? So I would say more team, I think, than anyone individually. Sorry, no one's coming to the top of my head.
That makes sense. The next question is, and this is, I need this answer too, because it's tough for me. How do you motivate yourself to go for a run or do exercise in times when there's no one to motivate you? And I'll expand on it. As a parent and you're drained and you're like, you know what, screw this, I don't want to do it. How do you get, I have a Peloton. I know you've got the treadmill of it too. When you are saying to yourself, I don't want to do this, what motivates you to actually jump on it or go train?
I'm a big believer in the mental piggy bank. What you put into it is what you get out of it. And the more pressure-filled situations in life and in this game of softball that you're going to go into, you need to get money from that mental piggy bank. So for me, I definitely know the difference between when I'm tired and when I truly need to take that recovery day on my body at 33. But at the end of the day, I make that conscious decision to do it right now, especially because I know my teammates are doing it. If I don't do what I'm supposed to, If the ball is in my hand in a game that a medal is on the line, that's what I will know and remember. I chose to tap out or use those excuses because it was too hard. Don't get me wrong, it sucks. And there's days where I question so many things. But at the end of the day, when I finish doing what I need to do, the feeling after that is like, I'm the best. I put in that work and our team is putting in this work. So when it's time to go to war, you hope that you've prepared the best you can. But I'm not a big believer in making up excuses for myself. And that is something that I've always had to sometimes learn the hard way. And I was lucky to have a dad that pushed me on days when I didn't want to do it. And now I think at times parents can be a little soft. Like I think an 8, 9-year-old at times needs to be pushed a little bit. Like, let's go do this. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do it right beside you. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to front toss. I'm going to be your supporter, but we're not going to quit. And I think if you continue to make up those excuses, they pile on each time until ultimately, you're not getting better and you're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, not going where you want to go.
That's great. Kylie Lawners just says, "Go Dogs." Get a little shout out there. Former dog herself, and I actually coached against Kylie a few years ago. She's a stud. So, all right, last 2 questions for you before I let you go. Can you shed a little bit of light just on your mentality when you go into the circle in a big game? Like, what are you telling yourself in your head, or is there self-talk, or is there anything that you kind of hold on to when you get into the circle mentally?
Yeah. So 2 years ago with the Olympic qualifier in 2009, I went into that Mexico game with bases loaded, 1 out, and talk about pressure. That was our Olympic qualifier. And if we didn't win that game, we had to win another one. But I remember going into that, coming from the pen, heart rate just elevated. Like I could feel it everywhere in my body. And I got out to the mound and like, I'm always telling myself like, dude, no one better. If you are not your own hype woman, no one else will be that for you. So I will toot my horn until I can't toot it anymore. But I was nervous, honestly, and I still get nervous at my age with all the hay I've put in the barn. But I took a second and I stepped off the mound and I literally did a 360. And I looked around and I took a deep breath. And I just remember saying to myself, this is why I went back to play this game. These moments, this feeling. And you ask any athlete about adrenaline and pressure, if you don't love that feeling, you shouldn't be playing sports. That's why we train to the level we do. So for me, it's like, I wish I could have bottled up the emotion in that moment because it was so special. And I just was like, my life is so much harder when I'm at home with my family and my kids than a bases loaded 1 out situation. So I just looked around in White Rock, BC at our home fans. I was like, how special is this that I'm the one in here right now? And no one better. And I believe it. No one better. You have to.
That's awesome. Okay, so before I let you go, if I want to learn more about you, follow your journey, this Olympic journey, and just you in general, what's the best place to learn more about you? And like, what's your Instagram handle? How do I become a fan of Danielle Lawrie and watch your journey in this Olympics that's coming up?
Yeah. So I have Twitter, and I'm pretty sure it's Danielle Lawrie 5. And then my Instagram's Danielle Lawrie 15. And honestly, it's been so cool to document the last 3.5 years on that, because I think people assume being an Olympic athlete is this glamorous, cool thing. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but it ain't glamorous. So I think being able to tap into that piece to let people know that tears are shed and it's not always pretty. And I have these moments, but I think it's been really cool to especially kind of tap into the mom piece, because I feel like I'm helping lay that foundation for a mom to believe that she's not done after kids. Kids do not define the rest of your life as far as your goals. Your kids are constantly on your mind. And it's actually pretty crazy the amount of, mom shame that I have gotten with going back into the game of how can you be away from your kids and make those choices? And I'm like, well, I'm not the best mom if I don't fill my bucket. And at the end of the day, I feel like I just keep it real and honest to be able to kind of help inspire the youth, but a lot of other people too. So I'm thankful that I have the platform that I have to just continue to keep helping and reaching out, but keep this open and honest all the way through.
Yeah. And for me personally, honestly, like coaching full time and having 5 kids, I know a lot of athletes are in the same boat as you and me and college coaches out there too. Like it is very difficult and very weighing to miss out on Little League games and recitals and all of the things that you miss out on because you're in this industry and because of what you do. And it is very difficult. So the shaming part is this, it's not fun. And there is a lot of guilt and shame that can go along with, hey, I'm missing this event or missing this thing, or I can't do this thing. And it is very difficult. But I think what I appreciate about you on Instagram is that you're very transparent in that journey and share with it. And I think it helps to encourage people who are in this world, like, hey, you know what? Sometimes we do. This is a tough job, and it's a tough job because with family and all the things involved with it. So I appreciate that side of it very much. And so everybody, thank you for tuning in so much today on this live Q&A on the Ask Coach Lisle show. If you're still with us, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the retweet button if you're on Twitter. Danielle, thank you so much for being my guest today and answering so many great questions. Thank you, everybody else who tuned in on. And make sure you follow Danielle Lawrie, 15 on Instagram. Check her out on Twitter, too. If you just type in Danielle Lawrie on any of those things, you'll find her, too. And, everyone, I join with everybody wishing you good luck in this season and the Olympics and rooting for you. So thanks again for coming on. And we will see you very soon. Thanks, Danielle.